Warp Core Breach, Episode 50. We're back.
Captain, enemy ships decloaking off our port bow.
They're charging weapons.
Shields up. Red alert.
They're firing!
Containment failure detected. Warp core breach imminent.
Welcome to Warp Core Breach. On this episode, Nick and David discuss some rulings and Star Trek Ascendancy. Griffin supervises the Battle of El Gatark. Nick's Intermix is back with some shield disabling combos. Brendan debuts a segment on Canon. Would Be Nice's explores the Sheliak. And then we all judge our top models and make captains of ourselves.
Warning. Warp core breach detected.
I'm David Montgomery, and here's my co-host, the Captain Proton to my Buster Kincaid.
Look out, Buster! It's Chaotica!
Let's go get Arachnia.
Queen of the Spider People!
Next thing you know, we're getting the President of Earth. Oh wait, that's just the Doctor.
Hey, he's gotta have his fun in the sun too, doesn't he?
And then we get the robot.
Uh-huh. Lonzak.
Those were good episodes.
Oh,
they were cheesy, but they were good.
No kidding. He almost wants a show like Outer Limits or Twilight Zone to be in the same network as CBS and then do like one episode of Captain Proton with the cast or something once in a while, like once a season or something.
That would be good.
Yeah.
The reason I chose those two things, the Captain Proton, Buster Kincaid, Nick doesn't actually know this, so this is news to him too. It's the kind of disappearing, reappearing theme. You never quite knew when you were getting an episode of that, but it's here.
Haha.
And that's how main episodes of Warp Core Breach went for a little bit. We took September off due to stuff, but we're back now.
I like stuff. Stuff makes life interesting.
It does.
Challenging at times, but once you get through it, you're better for it, and you might have more interesting tales. And I don't mean genetic tales, like coming out of the back
I'm going,
of the spine.
Where are you going with that? 'Cause, let's see. Did you go see Bashir and get some genetic modifications here?
Well, I have been playing a lot of Star Trek Online the past couple months since it hit console. So, they do have vacations, the Federation species that was introduced to us and then forgotten with the animated series, and they're basically cat people with tails, ears, claws, the works.
Well, if you think about it, that would be very difficult to do in anything aside from an animated series.
Well, maybe back in the day, but these days, especially when they've got like animated antennae for the Andorians and Enterprise and stuff like that, it's not beyond the realm of reason, even for a regular character. Considering the amount of makeup they went through for Michael Dorn to put him into the Worf costume, or Data, even just having to put on that gold makeup every time, the amount of work involved, it would be actually easier to put someone in a cat suit. And no, Michelle Pfeiffer, we're not talking about you.
Halle Berry?
We don't talk about that one. Oh, sorry. We don't talk about that one with outsiders.
Okay.
My bad Worf impression.
Yeah. So, well, you've been doing that. I've been playing Star Trek Ascendancy.
So I hear.
Yes. If you've been following the shipyard, you will have seen the first impressions video and the how to play video. Mm-hmm. If you have not been following the shipyard, or you decided not to watch that because it's not Star Trek Attack Wing, and you listen to this podcast for Star Trek Attack Wing, and I'm sorry for the interruption, but you're getting it anyways. Oh, does Star Trek Ascendancy drip theme? I never thought that a game about Star Trek that didn't use the characters or the ship names could actually feel like Star Trek.
No Picard, no Enterprise, no Bortos, no Gowron.
Nope. Nothing named aside from planets, species, and then technology, advancements. And that's where the heart and soul of these factions are. The things you do in this game lead you to play like the faction does. The Federation are peaceful. They follow the Prime Directive.
Nice.
They can't colonize pre-warp civilizations. And they don't go invading other people's planets. They try to take over peacefully.
So you got to kind of turn them into your people, or you've got to get there before other people have gotten there.
Right.
Gotcha.
And the Klingons are all about attack, attack, attack.
Conquer.
Yes. And the Romulans are all about cloaking and stealth, and they're not trusting. They feel like their faction. You feel like you're playing who they are. And they've shown previews for Cardassians and for Ferengi. And the Ferengi are all about production and building things up. That's profiteering. That's what the Ferengi are.
Have you got the lobes for business?
That will be the question when you play the Ferengi.
Nice.
I understand it is not going to be a game for everyone. It is a long game. It is a 3-hour game.
3-hour game.
Yeah, and sometimes it feels like Gilligan's Island because it can go on and on.
Lost at space? Danger,
not
danger.
Quite. But
reminds me of Firefly. Really awesome game. Great license. You know, you got the Firefly Serenity stuff. It does have the name people and everything, but it's not a fast game. It takes minimum 3 to 5 hours, depending on how many players and how much you want to get done.
All that being said, the rulebook does have a whole page of things you can do to make it faster.
Okay.
Which I think is super important to have, and if you're finding that games take a long time, that's great.
It allows you to tweak it in ways that you want, so you can still get the experience you want out of it, but with less time investment.
There you go.
Excellent. I love it already.
Yeah, it's a big box. It's $100 MSRP.
Steven, buddy, if you're hearing this, maybe you should get it and we'll play it.
But there's a lot in that box, and
oh wow,
it feels like it's worth it.
And that's 3 factions to start with, right?
Yeah, 3 factions to start with, so you want to... It's meant to be a 3-player game at that point.
Right.
And Cardassian and Ferengi are coming by the end of the year. And so that'll make it up to a 5-player game. I don't know that I would play a 5-player game because of downtime and added time.
And the board would probably get even more crowded.
Or you need a bigger board.
Stick 2 tables together, folks.
Or play on the floor.
Got a garage? Got a double garage? Even better. Park the cars outside and slap together some tables. Maybe some sawhorses, plywood sheets. There you go. Choose plywood sheets. 8 foot by 8 foot. Let her rip.
Also great for playing massive games of Attack Wing.
I was just headed there. You'll get to the point where you'll almost need those little shuffle sticks that they use in those war rooms from like World War I and II when they're plotting strategies.
It'll be like, okay, that's about a 4 straight.
From here to here. Oh, yeah.
And it's, okay, yeah, you know what? We buy that. That's close enough to the move you were trying to make. Because nobody's going to make you lean over 5 feet to make a move.
Exactly.
You need a little pop-up in the center of the table to make moves.
Need a protractor?
Oh, don't even.
Take the tape off the middle of your glasses there, Nick. Aww.
I do own a protractor.
Ditto.
I own a compass.
That too.
It's been a while since I've used them, but geometry tutoring.
Good times. We now return you to your regular scheduled podcast.
Yes, back to Attack Wing.
Did.
On Attack Wing, I think I've finally figured out how Holocommunicator works.
Huh?
it's just like the Admiral Borg Queen.
Well, based on the way that Worf ruled that, we almost have to assume that. I don't think that's quite the way I believe it should work, but given precedent, I think that's the way it has to work.
Exactly. I don't think that's how it should work either, but...
For the sake of ruling what happens, yeah.
Gotta make some calls.
Yeah.
And really, at this point, I'm starting to follow the advice that they gave the TOs for Dice Masters, which is, when in doubt, go with the weaker rules interpretation. AKA, don't break the game.
Whatever gives you the least benefit.
Well, it's not just that, it's play it conservatively, because that's probably how the designers and the design team meant it.
Right.
And if you're wrong, then there's always room to go up from there.
Instead of having to go down.
Yeah, it's so hard to scale back.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that perspective for the sake of the players. Because I would much rather say, hey guys, guess what? We had it wrong. Have some more. Rather than, hey guys, we had it wrong. We gotta take some stuff away from you.
It's so tough.
I know. Especially since it doesn't feel in theme with the device. But then again, the name, the device, the image is just kind of like a placeholder for an ability that isn't necessarily supposed to be exactly like the device would function in canon.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's just... It's the thing that makes the most sense to me, and it kind of fits in with the rest of that pack being a little lackluster.
Well, I did finally get my Enterprise B. They finally came in stock, and a buddy of mine brought one in. I did a little side-by-side comparison between the blue metallic paint job on the Lakota and the silver metallic paint job of the Enterprise B, both of which were supposed to be the refit version, but given our model situation, I'm still happy, and I really do like the silver paint job over the blue. I just find it looks so much better. The common argument is that, yeah, but the metallic look doesn't really belong on the movie-era ships. So, it's all debatable. If you like it, great. If not, hey, there's a little something we call paint.
Yes.
And I'm sure just about everybody knows somebody that might be able to paint it for you. You know, whether or not you can make that happen depends on your situation, but odds are if you talk around, you might be able to find somebody. Especially if you have at least a decent-sized gaming group.
If not, ask your Warhammer guys.
Yeah.
Because somebody in your area plays Warhammer, and they would be happy to paint.
Oh, yeah, and Games Workshop, quite often you can get the staff to paint them for you for a nominal fee. That's very common. So, look into it, check it out. Or maybe just try your hand at it. Like, I never painted a model in my life, save for one when I was like 6, and I did a really horrible job because I used the enamel paint, and it just was gross.
Because you were 6.
Yeah, but 2-3 years ago, I guess it was, when I first started, someone said, oh, hey, let's just have a painting day. We're painting Malifaux. Why don't you bring your ships down and come join us? It's like, oh, okay. So I tried it. I bought a cheap dollar store brush, and I got just a few containers of $3 paint. So all in all, I was out $10. And right away, it's like, oh, this isn't too bad. Like, I don't have the steadiest hand. I don't have the most precise, fine micro detail. But as far as just slapping on some color, putting color on certain areas, getting some basic detail, for a lot of us, that's a drastic improvement on the stock ship. Plus, it's personal. It's yours. No one else in the world has one quite like it. Unless, of course, you're talking about my repaint of, like, my Kazon banana boat that a year and change later, WizKids came out with almost the exact same paint scheme that I did. Actually, They've done it 2 or 3 times now. Does Nick ever get tired of tooting his own horn?
Well, I tell you, I did take an Intrepid class.
Yeah?
Silver Sharpie. And I held it up next to the Bellerophon when that first came out.
Yep.
And I asked the people in my game group, I said, okay, which one of these is the Bellerophon and which one of these is Silver Sharpie? 2 of the 4 people got it wrong.
Yeah.
That tells you something.
Yeah, both Jason and I did the whole silver Sharpie thing to a lot of our ships in the beginning as well. So we came across the same thing. It was quite fun.
Yes. Well, all this talk about paint, I do have more ships off to Indiana with my painter. So
excellent.
I'm looking forward to those. That's all for campaign and a couple of fun things that may or may not see play in tournaments, but it's more for campaign stuff and just like, hey, what's going to be fun?
Right on.
That's the way to do it. I appreciate community people helping me out. And it's all good stuff.
Excellent.
So I think all of that brings us into our top 3 models.
Excellent segue.
Yeah, it is. We're talking about paint models. It's all good. So there have been some terrible models. The less said about the Saber class, the better.
From a paint job point of view, the model wasn't bad. We've got to give it that. But the paint job...
Well, it had a gap.
Yeah.
But, anyways.
The biggest issue was the lipstick paint job. But anyway, you did say the less said, so moving along.
The Vadian battlecruiser, looked more like a Happy Meal toy. But
we call it the belt buckle here at home.
Yes. But all that being said, there are some great models.
Oh, yeah.
Some models that got repaints that are better because of the repaints. Everyone has their own reasons for liking certain models. So we said, hey, you know what? This may be all the models we ever get in the game. So this is the time to talk about our top models.
Is this North America's top model, or?
I think this is Star Trek's top model.
We'll call it the Star''P model, the Stop model.
Ooh. We better get that copywritten.
Get on that right now.
Anyways, hey, Nick, what's your number 3 on your top model list?
Well, you know how quite often we're torn with our top choice, which one's our favorite? Well, I was torn for my third choice. I was torn between the NX Enterprise and the Alpha Hunter, and I ended up leaning into the NX Enterprise because it's just a really cool ship to begin with, and personal favoritism. And my choices are based on the model, not the paint job or anything else, just the plastic model itself. And yeah, the Alpha Hunter was more detailed in a lot of ways, but I have an affinity for the Akiras and the NXs, and the NX received a better treatment, in my opinion, than the Akira.
I will agree with that. Those were both on my top 10. So certainly up there, and I'm going, oh. This list had a lot of tough cuts. I'm going, that hurts.
Yeah. This isn't the same as saying what's your top ships, because there's some of the ships got great treatment in the model form, but it's not really that great of a ship in your opinion or whatever else, and vice versa.
Good ships that look great and bad ships that look bad.
Hey. Like, honestly, the Buckle is not the greatest ship for the game and all that sort of stuff. And it looks really cool if you like the Vidian ships. The detail was decent. It was mounted backwards, granted. So you just spin your cardboard plate around. Like, honestly, I repainted the Buckle pretty quickly, and I like it. It's just not one I really enjoyed playing much.
I had my Buckle repainted. That was one of the first ones when I had an offer to have somebody repaint ships. I'm like, yes, that I know for sure I want repainted.
Mine was the Saber.
I don't think I ever bothered with that.
Lipstick I could not abide.
It's because I did a silver Sharpie version, and I went, I'm okay.
Yeah.
So, like you, I had a tough choice for my number 3. And ultimately, it was the Keldon class that got cut out.
Right.
I love that model.
I've always enjoyed that one.
So that was my near miss. But my number 3 went to the Romulan prototype.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I gave that one as much consideration as it deserves. Especially with how much I enjoyed playing it and looking at it.
It's all the little antennae and just the details. It looks so sleek on the table. It's such a pretty ship.
After my buddy Francois had repainted one for me, he made it this sort of dark, smoky, black-green. It looks amazing. It's so nice.
That would be even better.
Mm-hmm. I'll send you a picture sometime.
I think they did get the color a little wrong on it, but the sculpt.
Oh.
That was one of the first new sculpts that they did for Attack Wing rather than just recycling HeroClix sculpts.
Right.
And it showed what they were fully capable of doing.
We know what you're capable of, WizKids. You've proven yourself. We want to see more.
Yes. So, number 2.
For number 2, I had to go for the Kiana Prime. It's such a unique ship. It's got texture, it's got flanges and parts and spheres, and it's just wonderful. Like, I've got the Eaglemoss version, but I almost like the Attack Wing version better.
That's saying something.
Yeah. And I've got probably 3 to 5 dozen of those bloody things. I haven't even counted. I could be exaggerating. Wow. I might be conservative. I'm not sure. And at $20+ a pop, yeah.
That's another one that was on that short list, but what I should have done is pulled it out and looked at it. Because it might have been up there, but...
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's why the Romulan drone didn't get the attention it deserved from me, is I didn't go so far as to actually pick it up and fondle it again.
I think one of the problems Kiana Prime had for me is I've never put it on the tabletop. I've never played it in a game.
I've enjoyed playing it.
I don't think I've ever played against it, to be honest.
Really?
It's my play group.
Well, I guess we really have to arrange to get together in person and play, David.
Someday.
Someday soon, I hope.
I hope so, too. So my number 2, I may be stealing your thunder. I don't know. I think I might be. We've done this for over a year, so I think I kind of know you. But the Tholian ship.
Oh, you know what? I actually have my entire Tholian fleet in a separate box right now because I flew them, and it completely slipped my mind.
Dang it.
Oh, I absolutely love that ship, especially with the translucent aspects of it. We were promised translucence with some of these repaints, specifically the Voyager one. It said it right on, and as far as I could tell, it had no translucent aspects. Well, other than the peg socket.
Unless the nacelles had bits, but yeah.
I couldn't see it. I checked one out that my friend bought, and yeah.
But yeah, the Tholian ship, you could see through it.
Mm-hmm.
Not all that well, but it was tiny, but it was so detailed.
Oh, yeah.
And the couple of times that I put it on the table, it gets people to go, wait, you're flying a Tholian ship?
Damn right, Skippy.
But more than that, you go, this ship actually looks really good.
I know.
And it's another one of those new sculpts that they built in the time where it was right for them to be building ships for the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. So that's my number 2.
Just a quick add-on or side note. For the Kiana Prime, I think one of the reasons why I've got such an affinity for it is it makes me think of either Megatron or Galvatron's arm cannon. So, like, if you could actually take the Kiana Prime from Star Trek Attack Wing and attach it to the arm of, like, a toy Galvatron or Megatron, it would just look like it belonged there.
I could see that.
Totally. Well, my number 1 top pick is something I don't think anybody would have guessed, and that is the Breen Cruiser. This puppy, it's one of the most alien designs in Star Trek, in my opinion. Like, there's nothing else like it. And the fact that I have I was fortunate enough to buy out a local fellow, the previous TO before I came along, his collection. He actually had custom painted a bunch of his ships, including the Breen, and they just look amazing. It's so different, it's unique, and it felt right.
I'll have to talk to you about that, because no one I know can figure out how to paint the Breen correctly.
Really? Well, I'll have to share some pictures then.
Okay. We'll get on that off mic.
I'll post them on the Facebook forums and maybe even in the shipyard in the appropriate places.
There we go. So, my number 1. The gold bioship.
Oh yeah, such a beautiful one.
I do love the bioship as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic model. But the green kind of camo bioship looked okay.
Didn't feel natural. Needed to at least be a yellow or something, but we didn't want it to look like the banana boat. Granted, I bet the bioship could have pulled off the banana boat original colors better than it did.
I think so.
Yeah, well, the Kazon were more reddish-brown, darker colors to their ships.
They were. The Kazon were fall colors.
Exactly. Well, granted, the yellow and brown are part of the fall, but they were darker.
Burnt sienna.
Love that name. Favorite Crayola color. Burnt sienna.
Look it up, people. You'll understand.
Particularly in the 64-pack of crayons.
Yep. But there's just something about the gold bioships being a bit flashy and saying, yeah, we're here. What you gonna do? Now, my only problem is I don't have 7 of these to form a total energy blast.
Let's see, I've got, 5?
So, if we ever play together, we can combine our fleets. And
by our powers combined, we are Captain Undine.
That would be fun. But, too bad the energy blast card is completely ridiculous.
Oh, man, yeah.
It works better with Romulan science vessels supporting it, but that's a rant I don't want to start. Anyways, we just gave you 6 great top models. I'm really surprised we didn't overlap at all, but that tells you how many great models are out there, because my list could be Nick's list, and Nick's list could probably be my list.
In a heartbeat. And
it would work. And we could do probably a top 10, and we'd get overlapping at that point, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
But there are great models out there. So, we're going to toss it over to the contributors, hear what they have to say, and then we'll be back.
We'll be right back after a message from our contributors.
Hello there, everybody. Necromancer here, coming to talk to you about what I would consider to be my favorite model in all of Star Trek Attack Wing. Now, I'm going to cheat here a little bit and actually name 2 ships, and it'll become very clear very soon. The 2 ships I'm going to name as my favorite models are both the Dominion battleship and the cruiser. Now, very, very rarely do you see those 2 run separately because of the natural synergy therein, and they create just like this incredibly imposing force on the map. You see that primary weapon skill 5, primary weapon skill 6 with a massive hole behind it, and suddenly you know you're in for a big, grueling fight, and it's going to take a lot of tricks in order to pull it off. So I love seeing those 2 models in play, and it's really great because they just fit together so perfectly. Really like how it looks on the table, and it's a wonderful time to come up against them in actual scenario play.
Hi, this is Dave Griffin. Today we're talking about our top model, our top ship model. Not what the ship can do on the board, not what the ship card can do for you, but just the model itself. And to me, my favorite ship model is the Romulan Prototype 01. It was a new sculpt as far as I know. It was a very nice sculpt with a good paint job. I never even touched it in terms of painting it, even though I've painted almost every other ship I've got. So that's my choice, the Romulan Prototype 01. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.
This is Big John from the Klingon boarding party, and my favorite ship models are the Brel Cavort Bird of Prey model. I really love this model. It's a decent model. Not too fond of the Borg version of this model. I wish there was a wing-swept position one different from Chang's Bird of Prey, but I really like this model. My second and third runner-up would be the Sutherland Phoenix model and the NX-01 model.
Hello, players. Talking about my top ship model has to start with a couple of honorable mentions that probably also will get mentioned by someone else. So I consider the Alpha Hunter and Prototype 01 as my tops. In fact, my choice would have been Prototype, but now that I own one of these, I have to go with Deep Space Nine. Not only does Deep Space Nine have nice details, but it's just so big. And it's so satisfying to plop it down on the play area and suck up tons of space with its size and weapons ranges. And nothing, except maybe one of the oversized cubes, gets your opponent's attention like a space station.
Hello, this is Steven Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina, here to talk about today's question. Well, for me, I guess in terms of top ship, it would have to relate to what I like in terms of a favorite ship, not necessarily the most powerful ship in the game, but definitely one that I like in terms of its look value as well as playability. And for me, there's really two ships that come to mind in that regard. The Enterprise E, they're both Federation ships, by the way, the Enterprise E and the Thunderchild. I really like both models. The E would be my choice based on the ship's stats and its overall capability of staying in a fight and dishing out damage. The other ship, the Thunderchild, I like. It's a durable ship, but I really like it because of the look. I really love the Akira class starship look. I thought that was a neat CGI from the movies, and to see that in the gameplay, I think they really did a good job of making that model for the game. So those are my two ships that I would consider my top ships. Again, the Enterprise E definitely relating to its capabilities of firepower and its survivability due to the shields and hull. This is Steve Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina, hoping all your dice rolls are hits and evades.
And to put a nice bow on the topic of top models, we're going to hear from the community. So, rather than have everyone send in their own submission, because that would be more contributors, I threw this question up to the Facebook group, and I'm going to read some of the responses. Francisco says that the first one that actually impressed him was the Scimitar. Chris likes the feel of the repaint Intrepid or the Akira. Mark's a big fan of Prototype 01, saying it's just more detailed than just about anything else, and in his opinion, matches better with what you saw on TV more than anything else. I'm with you there, Mark. Randall says Akira. Love, love, love all of it. Shape, paint, details. Also likes the shape and details of the Nova, that's the Equinox, and hopes that they do a repaint of it. So, WizKids, if you're listening, make a repaint of the Equinox for Randall. Robert's a big fan of the NX-01, and a bunch of other people are too. I'm with you there. Jeremy's a big fan of the Alpha Hunter. Hey, we heard that from people. Dustin's a fan of the Saleya, loving the entire Dakir class bronze paint, much better than the old darker brown, saying if there's a wash, that would be even better. I agree, Dustin. Put a wash on that thing, comes up perfect. Paul's another fan of the Alpha Hunter, has 5 of them, wants another unique Alpha Hunter. WizKids, give us another unique Alpha Hunter. The Hirogen need more love. Make it happen. Dick is a fan of the Romulan Warbird. I'm thinking that's the Galgathon Fort of War model. If it is, definitely with you there. Love the Bird of Prey decal that was there. But it could be something else. It could be the Daenerys, in which case, also fine. Andrew is a fan of Interceptor 5. And that's the little Bajorn Interceptor. Definitely a unique choice, but one that's worth having there. Mike is a fan of the repaint Scimitar, saying that the more brown and metallic bits give it a lot of depth and detail work. I don't have one of them, but from what I've heard, The 50th paint job, definitely an improvement on what was already a really good paint job. Michael's a fan of Thalia 1, saying it's a bejeweled beetle of a ship, almost totally useless, but still a beautiful ship. Michael, I'm with you. I agree. Guppy says, wish it had a better paint job, but I really like the Gorn ship. Quite a unique model. Also like the Xindi reptilian ships, so Guppy's a fan of non-humanoid species. But those are some cool ships. We're definitely on considerations for me. Andrew throws out a huge list. Green bioships, so in contrast with what I threw out there. Also, Alpha Hunter, Gorn Raider, all the Xindi models, and the Jem'Hadar battleship. All good choices there. Brendan throws more love for the NX Enterprise. It's a good one. Brian throws his love for the ISS Defiant. Specific to the ISS because of the detailing in the model. With you there. Chad has a very interesting one. The Bajoran Scout. And his rationale. Because it's ugly. Stating that everything in the Star Trek universe is beautiful, sleek, colorful. The issue there is that spaceships don't have to be beautiful. They don't have to have paint schemes, decals, numbers, or fancy lights. A spaceship only needs to be functional, regardless if it looks like a rusty box on the outside. It's an interesting point. Sometimes beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And that's a good thing to point out, Chad. To wrap it up, Chris says, Jem'Hadar attack ships. Those things are sleek, slightly imposing. Wish they were better in-game, but the models look fantastic. So, there you go. Those are a bunch of thoughts on what the community likes in terms of models, and I hope you guys enjoyed hearing what the community has to say. We're going to keep doing this because I think it's great to have more opinions, more voices, bigger, better. Plus, it's what I like doing, so I'm going to do it. Enjoy the rest of the show. Contributors coming up next with their segments, and then Nick and I are back with the question of the week.
Hi, this is Dave Griffin. Today we're talking about the Battle of El Gatark. That comes with the USS Valiant, and it replicates the Valiant's experiences prior to the DS9 Valiant episode. Basically how a bunch of cadets got control of a Defiant-class ship. Now, the forces on the Dominion side are 40 SP, including one and only one Dominion ship starting on the north edge. On the Federation side, 40 SP, including the USS Valiant, plus whatever upgrades you want to put at it, up to 40 points, starting on the south edge, and 5 mission tokens on each ship card, 2 on the left side and 3 on the right side. The 2 on the left side represent damage to your maneuvering, and the 3 on the right side represent damage to your weapons. So the special rules are, until you remove all of the tokens on the left side, you can only go 1 maneuver. So that's 1 straight or 1 bank, or if you have it, 1 turn. Or on the right-hand side, you're doing 1 attack die attacks until you remove all 3 of those tokens on the right side. You also have a new action, both sides do. You can take an action to remove 1 token from either stack. You can also take an action to remove 2 tokens, but to do that you need to take 4 damage. It's not clear whether that's only hull or shields, but either way I can't imagine anybody doing that. The objectives on both sides are to destroy the other ship. So both ships at the start are going to have to go pretty slow. I mean, there's a limit to how fast they could approach each other, even if they wanted to go fast. It's going to take them 3 or 4 turns just to arrive at the enemy. You could, if you want, try to remove all the maneuver tokens first and try to get to your enemy and maybe even shoot him so that he couldn't respond, even if you're using low dice. But the obvious counter to that for the other ship is to remove all its weapons first. And since it's very hard to get in back of someone before they can get a shot at you, the odds are that they're going to get 1 very good shot at you before you get the opportunity to dance around them. So that's not likely to be a winning solution. So what that generally degenerates to is that both sides, move around without much speed toward their enemy until they've got all the tokens off, and you end up with a one-on-one battle between two 40-point ships, which isn't a bad game either, but I can't see that you're going to get much advantage by trying to engage on either side before you remove all those tokens. Feel free to prove me wrong. Now, there's two ways this can go down, I think. One way is the small ship, and the other way is with the large ship. And, of course, there's a mix in between. On the Valiant side, you've only got 3 attack die, but, of course, there's upgraded phasers and Type 8 phasers and Arsenal, and the combination of those 3 cards makes your Defiant class a 5-dice monster. If you do that, the other side kind of needs to respond with a fairly good ship itself, like a generic Dominion battlecruiser is a good option. It's got a decent maneuver wheel, it's got good attack dice, it's got a turnabout, and you even have enough points to slap a good captain on there like Ducat and maybe even dorsal phaser array. On the other hand, you could take Defiant and leave it at 3 attack die. If you do, and the other side uses a Dominion attack ship, that could be an interesting battle too. But if you attack die up the Valiant and you use an attack ship on the Dominion side, they're probably going to lose. Likewise, if they take a big battle cruiser and you take the Valiant without bringing the attack die bonuses, well, the Valiant's probably going to lose, because the Valiant's 90-degree arc is going to kill it in the end. So if you both take similar attack die on both sides, it ends up being a nice little battle between 2 ships, effectively a duel. That's worth playing. I would rate that as 3 stars and say it's a fun way to get the Valiant out on the board. So have fun with this. Just make sure you don't try it with mismatched attack dice. Or if you do, make sure you have some kind of trick to win. So have fun with this, and I'll see you next week.
Welcome to the return of Nick's Intermix. This time, it's personnel. The upcoming release of Wave 27 has got me thinking. The Wave 0 Klingon ship Goroth is coming back as a reprint, and with the Goroth we get Projected Stasis Field and Sabotage. Both are non-unique upgrades, Projected Stasis Field being a tech upgrade, Sabotage being an elite talent, both going hand in hand with messing with your opponent's ships and upgrades. Projected Stasis Field is a handy single-use card that might seem to have a steep cost at first, but with what it gives you, it's well worth that price. The best thing about Projected Stasis Field is it knocks out the enemy's shields and prevents them from attacking anyone with that ship this round. Following up with cards like Sabotage or Klingon Boarding Party, you can really wreak havoc with their upgrades. Shenanigans go right out the airlock and set you up for success. Kapla! Well, you don't have to play exclusively Klingon, but it works really well in a Klingon pure build. Once you've got their shields down, you throw on something like the Klingon Boarding Party, disable all their upgrades, remove all the battle station tokens that are on that ship. Yes, I've seen ships have more than one. It happens. You can play your Sabotage to discard a tech or a weapon on their ship, and any of the plethora of upgrades that allow you to mess with the upgrades on a ship, but require the shields to be down. And that is often a deal breaker, because once the shields are down, isn't your instinct to just hit them harder and finish them off? With all the ships that have the upgrades giving them shenanigan effects of being able to stay alive, surviving hit after hit from any source, you kind of need a leg up. And this really is the solution. It's a killer, absolute killer for those Equinauts. The Equinox ship with the jacked up shields and the ability to regenerate every round, even with 3 ships hammering on it with decent dice, you can't guarantee to get down into the hull, let alone enough to kill it. So some people resort to weapons that just ignore shields entirely, but those come at an extreme cost, because usually you either need to switch to the Borg faction or put upgrades like the Chronoton torpedoes on an out-of-faction ship, which jack the price from 6 to 13 points. Now, I'm all for taking a squadron point hit to get some cool combinations or cool cards in there, but sometimes that's just too high a price to ask. With spreading around some of this love with these different upgrades that projected stasis field, sabotage, throwing in cards like concussive charges and targeting systems, you're opening up a can of worms for your enemy that allow you to deal with a number of different situations, from uber shields, uber upgrades, even cloaking, and you can get through just about anything with those. Tack on the support cards like the Klingon stealth team, the Klingon boarding party, sabotage. The list is endless. There's so many cards that can take advantage of these combinations, and you can spread them out amongst 2, 3, or 4 ships. And the fact that the majority of these cards are non-unique, you can buy multiples, you can put one on each ship if you want. The idea here is you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You can deal with just about anything they can throw at you, and you don't have to have ships in your fleet that throw 10 attack or defense dice with quality to survive. You don't have to go to the insane level, and you don't have to plan for every circumstance by loading in 12 or 15 different upgrades that are only useful in 1 or 2 unique situations. These cards, as long as you have the core 3, projected stasis field, concussive charges, and any one of the cards that mess with the upgrades once the shields are down. Simple, cost-effective solution to clear the way so that when you roll those hits and crits, they're just going to slide on through and rip their hull to pieces.
Hello, I'm Brendan, and this is Canon Consideration, a segment where we examine cards to see how closely they match the TV shows and movies that inspire them. Since this segment centers on the idea of accuracy, we should probably begin by admitting that WizKids cannot create a game that perfectly replicates what we see on Star Trek. Some inconsistency is inherent in the source material. The Klingon bird of prey, for example, has been shown using the same model to represent ships with a variety of sizes and capabilities. A similar problem confronts us when we consider the Jem'Hadar battleship seen in Valiant and What You Leave Behind. Like all fans, WizKids has been forced to pick and choose which instances and versions of the Star Trek canon they will represent. Other inconsistencies between the canon and Attack Wing exist for gameplay purposes. Each ship is intended to play using a limited set of upgrades, and the player is expected to choose those upgrades carefully as they consider their overall strategy for each mission. This is why the Enterprise E only includes 2 crew slots, hardly enough to play the next-gen command staff. This is also why standard systems like torpedoes and tractor beams must be added to each ship rather than being built in. From a role-play standpoint, we might want access to everything the Enterprise E had in the movies, but WizKids knows that too many options would overwhelm most players, and so they make us choose. These understandings will shape this segment. When we examine how Attack Wing portrays a certain ship or ability, we aren't going to dwell on matters of scale. We also aren't going to spend much time on the inconsistencies inherent in the canon, though we will try to note what specific movie or episode seems to be inspiring the cards. We will, however, examine the unique abilities, action bars, and stats like weapons and hull. We will highlight thematic elements that exist beyond the missions, the ways that specific ships pair with their captains and crews. There's a risk that this segment might come off as nitpicky, but our ultimate purpose isn't to poke holes in the work that WizKids does. It's clear the designers of this game have made an effort to capture the feel of Star Trek, and that's amazing. One of Attack Wing's greatest strengths is its use of so many different missions and OP scenarios to reenact famous adventures. In many ways, what we have in Attack Wing isn't so much of a game composed of scenarios X, Y, and Z, as it is a platform. Our highest goal in this segment is to refine that platform. Once we've identified an area in which Attack Wing fails to represent what we see on Star Trek, I'm going to offer my own suggestions. Call them fantasies, call them requests, call them house rules, or call them groundwork for a fan-built Attack Wing 2.0. I believe that we all want this game to be the best it can be. I'm excited to take a look at these cards, and to dream about further possibilities, and I invite you to join me and do the same. Most of the time, our focus in this segment will be on 2 to 3 cards that are based on a single episode or film, but today I'd like to start by taking a more general look at the types of starships represented in Attack Wing. Star Trek has depicted ship-to-ship combat in a variety of ways. From direct one-on-one attacks in open space to tactical jousts through asteroid fields and nebulas, from small engagements involving 2 to 3 ships to vast fleets of dozens, even hundreds of vessels. The largest battles were shown in Deep Space Nine, where cheaper effects and CGI made it possible to present far more ships together on screen than in previous years. Different species also seem to favor different types of fleet organization. The Federation uses mostly versatile mid-level ships that can be sent out alone on missions of exploration. Some ships are larger, others are more agile, but when a fleet is needed, all of these ships are called together, outfitted with a combat focus, and deployed together. The Romulans seem to operate in much the same way. The Klingons in Dominion, meanwhile, tend to organize their fleets around much larger command ships and lay down cover fire with these for waves of smaller attack ships. For the most part, Attack Wing lends itself to the Federation and Romulan model, a random assortment of ships joined together for battle. Aside from fighters and shuttles, which are very distinct and follow their own sets of rules, most in-game ships fall within a middle range of abilities, stats, and interchangeable upgrade slots. If Attack Wing were to better match the full range of combat we see on Star Trek while offering a balanced gameplay experience, the first big change I would recommend would be to follow the example of the fighters, and separate the general array of ships into more distinct classes, whose abilities would complement each other when forming a fleet. This same type of specialization would also present players with interesting trade-offs when choosing ships for solo missions. So what categories would I suggest we think about when looking at Attack Wing ships? The strongest ships should be slow-moving, fortress-like battleships, the Klingon Negvar, Dominion Battleship, and Borg Tactical Cube. They should be slow to enter the fray, almost impossible to maneuver, but scary to face and hard to kill. They should have abilities that support nearby allies, and they should probably come with 5 to 6 upgrade slots. The next level should be the cruisers. Moderate in speed, stats, and maneuverability, these ships should have more 4 to 5 upgrade slots and abilities that help them to survive on their own. Many of the ships seen adventuring solo on Star Trek should fall in this category, the Excelsior, Klingon Vorcha, Ferengi Decorah. Further down, we should have the scouts, high speed, maybe even without 1 or 2 speeds on their dial, and highly maneuverable, but weaker in stats with only 2 to 3 upgrade slots. After all, you should be able to fit much more crew and equipment on larger vessels, and you're trading that ability out in order for the firepower and speed of these smaller ships. They should, however, be glass cannons, ships like the Burrell and the Romulan Drone. While some, like the Defiant, can also function on their own, these vessels should primarily be swarm-based. They should be able to fly circles around larger ships, hitting them in vulnerable arcs and evading enemy fire. Using scouts should be tricky, but rewarding. Finally come the personal ships, fighter squadrons, and shuttles. They should have a top speed of only 1 to 3, be highly maneuverable, very difficult to hit unless they're representing a full squadron. Fighters and shuttles should be able to dock and launch from larger ships easily, even piggybacking aboard those larger ships to reach different areas of the battlefield. Shuttles, as already designed, should facilitate the transfer of captains, crew, and upgrades between ships and locations. Fighters, also as currently designed, should serve as support ships outmaneuvering, even out-evading the best scouts. These 4 categories, battleships, cruisers, scouts, and personal craft, will form the framework of how I think about the ships in Attack Wing. While I believe them to be helpful beginning, as these categories also raise further questions. Is the Enterprise D a battleship or a cruiser? Is the Voyager a cruiser or a scout? Do specific vessels of the same type behave in markedly different ways that defy classification? These topics, among others, are some that I hope to explore in the weeks to come. Until next time, this has been Brandon with Canon Consideration.
Hello, players. We've got a could use this time. I feel it's time we bring some more love to the independent faction in the form of another bruiser, something of which the indies don't have enough of. So let's go back to early TNG for this vessel's lone appearance, and build the Sheliak colony ship. Now this ship needs to be beefier than the Enterprise D, so our stat line will be 5155. Indy unique, 90 forward, 90 rear. Typical scanned battle stations evade target lock with the crew, 2 tech, and a weapon. Text: if more than one opposing ship is in your forward firing arc at range 1 to 2, you may take a battle stations as a free action. and the generic drops a shield and attack. Our captain will be the Sheliak Director. 5 points, skill 7, 1 elite talent, indie unique. At the start of the game, choose an opposing faction. When ships of that faction are in your firing arcs at range 1, treat your captain skill as +1 for each of those ships, max of 3. Each time you defend against a ship of that faction, you may place an ox beside your ship to reroll all your defense dice. Faction penalty is doubled for this card, because everyone else is inferior to the Sheliak. Our elite talent is Colonization. 4 points into unique. Action. Discard this card to target a ship at range 1 to 2. Place 2 time tokens on the captain of the target ship and on up to 2 non-disabled crew. If the target ship has no non-disabled crew, then place 2 additional time tokens on the captain. This card may only be deployed to a Sheliak ship or a ship with a Sheliak captain. The Sheliak membership is our crew. 4 points indie, non-unique. Action. Place 3 time tokens on this card to target an enemy ship at range 1. Immediately disable 1 tech or weapon upgrade on the target ship. You may also move the target ship 1 full astern and then place an Ox Power token beside it. This card can only be deployed to a Sheliak starship. Now we're going to slip in a couple of other crew from the episode, and while not Sheliak, they are independent. Goshevin is 1 point, unique. Discard this card to target a ship at range 1 and disable a crew or tech upgrade on the target ship. If the upgrade is already disabled, then discard it instead. Ardreen McKenzie is 2 points unique. When you are required to disable a tech upgrade, you may disable this card instead, or disable this card to remove all tokens from a tech upgrade. Now back to the Sheliak with technology. Peace Treaty, 3 points into unique. When your ship is targeted for attack, you may disable this card to cancel the attack. The target ship can't redirect the attack, and you cannot attack the target ship this round. This card costs +3 if not assigned to a ship with a Sheliak captain. Treaty Violation, 3 points unique. If an opposing ship enters your forward or rear firing arc at range 1, you may discard this card to immediately perform an attack against the ship with your primary weapon -2 to a minimum of 1, with no range bonus. There is no attack penalty, however, if your ship is equipped with the Peace Treaty upgrade. You cannot attack the target ship again this round. This card also costs +3 if not assigned to a ship with a Sheliak captain. And our lone weapon is Hyperonic Radiation. 6 points, 6 attack, range 1 to 2. Attack. Place 4 time tokens on this card to perform this attack. You may instead discard this card to attack at range 3. This attack cannot be modified and the target ship rolls no defense dice. For each critical result, instead of inflicting damage, disable 1 random crew from the target ship. If the crew is already disabled or has time tokens on it, discard it. If the target ship has no crew remaining to disable or discard, then disable the target ship's captain. You may fire this weapon from your forward or rear firing arcs, and it costs +4 if not assigned to a Sheliak starship. And that's our Indie Bruiser this time. So let us know how she plays for you, and keep thinking outside that box.
Okay, so we're back with a really random question of the week. If you could turn yourself into a captain in the game, what skill would you have? What faction would you choose? And what ability would you have? You know, basically create a captain card for yourself. And this is one we've been sitting on for a while. It's taken me a while to really come up with it. So I think I like what I have.
Well, I've gone so many different directions with this. I've made different versions all the time. And I came up with something a little different. I made myself an Admiral Captain just because I see myself in many cases more of as a supporting role than the absolute, leader type.
Okay,
so
sure.
I went for Admiral Captain Nick Norris, independent faction, so that I could, float around there, help whoever's needed, because it's not about the big brother, the Federation, the boss, And I went for 4 SP, skill 7, but a +2 as an admiral. And the ability is -3 SP build discount for each ship in your fleet. So if you have 3 ships, you get a discount of 9. So with the cost of 4, that means you get a 5-point discount on your whole fleet. So it's nothing overpowered, just a little bit of extra help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like it.
Mm-hmm. More for synergy of things and the overall effect.
Sure.
And I've always wanted to have more admirals that have a passive effect. I know they've got that Fleet Admiral token for that action, but a passive effect would be nicer. Like if Admiral Hayes just gave out +1 to the fleet, kind of like a Federation Denatra.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he easily could.
Oh, yeah.
But, so, oddly enough, I also went with skill 7. I went with Xindi faction.
Nice.
For no other reason than Xindi needs more cool stuff.
Well, the next 3 waves have Xindi for new stuff, so we've got a lot to look forward to. So,
true.
What are you contributing to the faction, David?
So, I essentially took the Kraxon ability and made it a captain.
Oh, shield extension?
Yes,
nice.
Except I tweaked the wording to what it always should be, or should have been.
Okay.
Each time a friendly ship within range 1 to 2 of your ship receives damage, you may transfer any amount of that damage to your shields, and then reduce the damage by 1.
Ah, nice. I like it.
So you're absorbing, you're taking 1 less, which seems reasonable to do.
Right.
So you could just take 1 away, and then you actually take nothing.
Right. Yeah, and for a weak attack of just 1 hit, it's reasonable. It's realistic.
Yeah.
It's not like you're saying, oh, here's a 5 hit, we're going to turn it to nothing. You're only knocking it down to 4, and when it's only 1, it's not a big enough deal in the first place that you're not going to get all bent out of shape over 1 less damage.
Yeah, that could easily be a Vulcan captain too.
Yeah, it would work quite well there.
My math degree, the logic, I'd fit in with Vulcan.
And I'd love to have that ability on a Dakir ship.
Yeah.
I actually flew Vulcans was it last week? Yeah.
Nice.
I had 2 Dakirs and a Surok, and I did extremely well. I had a blast.
Cool. Yeah, Vulcans have a lot of cool things. I mean, that ability with the Talkir would be ridiculous.
And that actually was my my tertiary ship. Because you have the Dakir, the Talkir, and I used the Nivar or whatever. And the Nivar was actually my powerhouse, given that the Surok class ships actually have a white turn on them as opposed to the red turns on the Dakir class.
Oh, yeah.
So that was my front runner. Beefing that up with the combat upgrade and everything, I was able to make that a more substantial ship. And the other guys were the tanks. It did really well. I think I only ever lost 1 ship in 1 game.
Well, Vulcans have a lot of good potential. Steve Stott, one of our contributors, really loves the Vulcans, and he tries to play them as much as he can. So I hear a lot of good Vulcan stuff from him, and I believe it. I think a lot of factions have good potential if you work at them enough.
Yeah.
It's not all of them, but
just think of projected stasis field with Vulcan commandos.
Well, yeah. And that's why this game... I'm going to go on a rant here. Just
all right, I'll sit back and break out the popcorn.
Okay. Things like that are why this game is not meant to be fleet pure. Ship pure, perfectly fine, if that's how you want to go. But not fleet pure. Because things like Salatrell, Picard 8, Hayes, Task Force, especially Task Force, they start to dominate if you're running one particular fleet, one faction.
Right.
Ship Peer mixes it up. If you're trying to prevent a lot of the silliness, so-called silliness in the game, then Ship Peer is a great middle ground.
You're still allowing for cooperation between faction ships. Yeah, but you're not doing the whole, well, I've got 6 different factions worth of upgrades on one ship, and I'm virtually invincible and deal $1 billion damage every round. Oh, and I get to attack 4 times. You know, that kind of ridiculousness. I totally get why people are against mixing for those reasons. But realistically, balance finds a way no matter what format you're going to get, and craziness finds a way no matter what format you're going to choose.
It does. It absolutely does.
No format is better than the other. You just may find favor in one over the other. And bottom line, enjoy it. Have fun. Play the way you want. Hopefully the people you play with want to do the same way you do.
And that's... I brought that up on the community, and I'm going, you know what? If you found something that works for your group, that's great. Mm-hmm. Just don't go bashing open play.
Absolutely. And open players don't go bashing pure play, because some people make it work brilliantly and can even take your mixed builds down. So...
At times.
Well, like I'm fond of saying, I've got a pretty wicked Klingon pure build that so far is undefeated.
Yeah.
I just don't play it all the time because I don't want to be a dick.
Yeah. I believe that those things exist. Mm-hmm. It's all a matter of what works and the points that you're playing at, and
right.
It's one of the things I've really enjoyed about going up to 160 at my venue is there's so much to explore at a different point level. I don't care what the point level is.
Yeah.
Just make it different than what you've normally played at, and you will find that the build works in a different way. Things you thought weren't good now all of a sudden become good. Like the Venture became very playable at 160 because you have 4 or 5 ships on the board. So something has a ship in its forward arc to make the Venture get its bonus.
Right. And was it the Hakona, where you get +1 for each other Romulan ship in your fleet? That one wasn't that great unless you get to, like, 4 ships.
Yeah, a lot easier to do in a bigger point game.
Mm-hmm.
And other things aren't nearly as good because there's more things to focus you down.
Right. Can you imagine a dozen Tholian ships coming at you?
Yeah. The Equinox isn't as good in a large point game.
Exactly.
Because there's more ships to fire on it. I don't care how many shields you have. Your opponent can wear you down. They can focus fire on that Equinox.
Like, quite often you can take down an Equinox if you've got 3 reasonably powered ships hammering on it every turn. You might be on the cusp. You might only get a couple damage in each round, but it doesn't take much. It's only got a hull of, 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't take much to get through that. But if you've got 4 or 5 or 6, like David says, I don't care how much you beef that sucker up, you're going to die.
Right. Now, the flip side of that is you have more room to bring things like projected stasis field, Colo on a different ship to move an attack over, other things for attack cancellation.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good. The thing is, the dynamics change. The points aren't set. The build isn't this automatic go-to, hey, I run this and I win.
Right.
There's a different thing. Different captains become more valuable. Different admirals become more valuable. I was able to run Task Force, not Federation Task Force. Task Force is the one from the Cairo that gives you an extra attack and defense die against a faction of your choice. That becomes better when you have a lot of points, because now all of a sudden spending 5 points on a talent isn't as much of a percentage of your total build.
Right, like on a 90-point build, for example, for a standard OP with like blind boosters, that's more than a 20th. Like that's a huge section of your points. Yeah,
6.
It may not seem like much
or so.
Yeah, that's a lot. But when you're talking like, upwards 160 or 200 or 250, then it really is a drop in the bucket. And it's like, whatever. And it can encourage you to play some otherwise interesting cards that you completely dismissed because the cost was too great.
The flip side of all of that is I still say 5 points is 1/4 of a barrel. And
yeah.
Is it worth 1/4 of another ship?
Yeah.
Especially a ship that can do some decent damage.
Mm-hmm. It is worth it if it's part of like a multi-part gimmick, trick, shenanigans, combo, whatever you want to call it, that in a larger scale game, you actually have the chance to pull off.
Yes.
But if it's like a one-trick pony in a standard game, that's what makes a lot of these high-priced cards completely unworthy.
Correct.
We need to get away from that, yeah.
Cheat death is far less good in big games because stuff's going to die.
Yeah, like you might come back, you've got 1 hit point. Oh, but there's still 4 or 5 other ships that can shoot at you this turn. Whoops.
Yeah.
You'd rather have something like a warp jump or one of the other cards that allows you to just leap away and hopefully have like a healing card like Glindaro or something to bring yourself back to fighting form.
Yeah. And that's what changes things. And it's why I say play the missions, because the missions change the points so much more frequently.
Yes. And by missions, we mean the 2, 3, or 4 or more mission cards that come in the packs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's some missions that say, hey, run 200 points or 240 points or run 40 points.
Yeah. I love some of the smaller ones, too. When you're like one ship.
Yeah. Or sometimes they say run 2 ships with 60 total points.
Yeah, that's...
And you're going, how do I make that work? You find a way.
Yeah, you challenge yourself. You possibly make yourself better as a player because you have to find a way to get more from less. And that's where you really learn the strategy of playing the game and not just building the game.
Right.
And in order to be a well-rounded player, you need to spend some time focusing on simple things like maneuvering, for example, because no matter what stuff you've got, as long as the board isn't laden with range 3 360s, maneuvering is the most important part of the game. That's what's going to decide most outcomes. Unless, of course, you're maneuvering brilliantly with a ship that only fires 1 die every turn, versus someone that's throwing like 8 or 10, and they only have to hit you once. That's where the other side comes in.
Yes. Though, I don't think anything has a... Well, anything aside from Deep Space Nine, Terok Nor has a range 3 360.
I thought that was ruled to be range 1 to 2 for the 360, and range 2 to 3 for the secondary or the other arcs.
Well, Terok Nor's special ability.
Right.
Let's go
Understood.
Range 3.
Yeah, or the upgrades that give you range 3 360, like the the Dominion ones, for example.
But even then, most of those are disables, so...
And they're 3 and 4 dice power, non-primary, so they're not exactly easy to beef up without severe cost.
Denatra, Hayes, yada yada yada.
Yeah, but again, you gotta pay for it, and it's gotta be on different ships.
Right, so... Yeah, it's tough to get a lot of range 3 360s.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, what are you really doing? How are you flying that you need that many range 3 360s?
The only time I feel I need 360s in my builds is when I'm playing the lumbering hulks, like the Dominion dreadnoughts and such. The ones that can't turn worth a darn. And
oh, yeah.
We don't want to be caught with our shields down and the Borg after us.
Yeah, because that's just bad for everybody.
They're like unwelcome guests. They come over to your place, they take up space, and then by the time you finally manage to kick them out, your place is a disaster. Do you really want your ship to look like that?
They're like Klingons and Tribbles trying to hang out. It just ends poorly.
I know.
That's
why you never invite the bluegills over for a Klingon party, because they keep getting mistaken for food.
Yeah. All right. Contributors.
Save us. From ourselves.
Contributors! What would your captain be? What would you be as a captain?
Oh, captain, my captain. Your captain. Please.
There we go. Phrasing. It's a weird thing.
That's how you get ants, Barry. That's how you get ants!
Hello there, everybody. Necromantis here, coming to talk to you about what I would choose to be if I could make myself into a captain within Star Trek Attack Wing. Now, first off, I'd want to be Captain Skill 8 so that I'm not living in perennial fear of Gulma Dread, because, if there's one thing I hate, it's when I lose a key captain to just being sniped off. So I like to remain above Skill 7 when possible. Of course, being above Skill 5 basically necessitates having a single elite talent slot. I'm not going to be taking Car's thing of having that double slot. For my ability, I'm actually going to take an action. I think that there are not enough value action captains, and so my action would be when attacking with your primary weapon, gain +1 attack die, and you may convert one blank result into a hit result. Not only do I like attack boosting abilities, but I also think that conversions are some of the most valuable and difficult to come across forms of quality. So I would love to see a captain that actually gave you some conversions from blanks to hits, rather than something like Martok 7 with the action that gives you a crit instead of a hit result. So that's what I would choose. Of course, that rounds out to about cost 5. And I would really like to play with a captain like that. I feel you should be the change you want to see with the world, and that's what I would make myself into.
This is Big John out of Da Vinci's DreamWorks 2, South Florida, for the Klingon boarding party. And I would be a 3-captain skill in the Klingon faction with 2 elite talents. I am ready to charge into battle, but I don't necessarily have as much skill as other captains, but I have many tricks up my sleeves. Kapla!
Hello, this is Steven Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina. Here's what my card would look like. If anybody has listened to my input on these podcasts, you know that my favorite faction in the game is the Vulcans. Of course, that's with all of Star Trek, so it would be definitely logical that I would be Vulcan. So here it goes. It would be actually a Captain/Admiral card. Captain Stott of Vulcan or Admiral Stott of Vulcan. On the Admiral side, it would have a +2 skill. And on the Captain side, it would be a 8 skill. The cost would be 5 SP. And here is what it would say in the text. Add 1 tech or crew slot to your ship. And then the second part of the text would read, you may field the Latashkatur Elite Upgrade for free. Obviously, I would have an Elite Upgrade slot on the card, but the text would read that I could field that particular upgrade for free, and also, instead of discarding upgrades or shields, you disable the upgrades and shields to use that talent upgrade. I think that would make it pretty powerful stats indeed, but hey, the question is, if you were going to be captain, hey, I'm captain for a day, admiral for a day, so I am going to make it all powerful for the Vulcans to use. I think that would be a pretty cool text and unique ability to have on my card, and would definitely add something to the Vulcan arsenal as it relates to the game. Anyway, this is Steven Stott with Ready to Play Gaming out in Columbia, South Carolina, hoping all your dice rolls are hits and evades.
We had a little bit of everything there.
It felt so, like it covered so much and it did it so well. It's like, what more do we need to do for this episode?
I don't know. I think when we have those feelings, it's best to call it a day before we overstay our welcome. Unlike fish and visitors.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, we used that in episode 42. We can't use that again.
Well, Halloween is coming up, so long and no thank you for all the lutefisk.
Now you're insulting my heritage.
Not as a Halloween treat, though.
Warp core breach.
And it's a reference
10,
to a Simpsons episode.
9,
just
8,
so you're aware.
7, 6.
But I'm finished.
5.
And now we're
4,
finished.
This is Nick.
3.
And this is David.
2.
Ejecting the
1.
core.
Warp core ejected.
Warp Core Breach is produced by Nick Norris and David Montgomery, with additional content from our contributors. Our computer is voiced by Corinne Donnelly.
Warp Core Breach is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with CBS Studios Incorporated or the Star Trek franchise. All Star Trek trademarks and logos are owned by CBS Studios Incorporated.
All sound files are used under Creative Commons 3.0 by attribution. For specifics, please visit our Facebook page by searching Warp Core Breach Podcast. If you want to contribute to the show, let us know on the Facebook page, or you can email us at warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com.
And we're back.
And we're back.
Wait, I'm front. Spin me around, quick.
Okay. Yeah.
Snotty beat me twice last week. Missed you, buddy.
Hey, I think we just found our blooper.
Nice.